Tobias Selwood.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, for granting this timely debate on modular nuclear reactors here in the United Kingdom. Until recently, we've taken our dependence on electricity generation for granted. Policy has rightly been influenced by our ambitions to reduce our carbon footprint arguably faster than many other developing and developed nations, but we may have been a little complacent over the last few years regarding the security of energy supply. Our world is getting more dangerous, not less, and the war in Ukraine has been a massive reality check in exposing on how reliant we are and therefore vulnerable on access to international energy markets in order to keep our lights on. Now, we require imports of gas, of oil, indeed coal, to fuel our power stations, and all too regularly we have to import electricity itself from the continent through the interconnectors when we can't generate enough power ourselves. Now, the security situation in Eastern Europe is clearly complicating matters. Putin is weaponizing Russia's distribution of oil and gas, causing large-scale economic harm across Europe. The cost of living crisis here has many components, but arguably a major contribution is the spike in global energy prices and volatility in the energy markets as well. All this requires a sense of urgency to both find short and long-term solutions. Now, tomorrow, we expect the government will spell out its support to get us through this crisis. Now, with much speculation, the energy bills may be frozen, helping us get through a very difficult winter. But we also require a longer-term strategy, so we become far more energy self-sufficient as we enter a decade where global security is on the decline. Very briefly, yes.
Mr Deputy Speaker, first of all, can I congratulate him on bringing this forward. Does the right honourable member not agree that the use of the small modular reactors in conjunction with nuclear energy gives a more solid certainty for assisted and sustained energy, particularly in relation to my constituency of Strangford, but in Northern Ireland? Northern Ireland has no nuclear production, so it's essential that this type of energy that the honourable gentleman is referring to is UK-wide across all of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
No, I agree with my right honourable friend, and I actually welcome government's action to bolster our energy resilience, finally increasing UK gas storage capacity, investing in better insulation for our homes, and growing wind and solar contribution to our energy mix, and of course investing in new nuclear. But as the government's energy and security strategy sets out, Britain will accelerate new nuclear, including modular reactors, which will form a key part of that energy mix. We've got Hinkley Point, we've got Sizewell C, I'll make some progress if I may, coming online, adding 3,000 megawatts to the grid. But it will be a full decade before they start to add their power. So I say today, we do not have the luxury to wait that long. Energy consumption, both here and across the world, is only going to increase as we move towards a cleaner, fossil-free environment, especially across Africa, as economies and industries grow, placing ever greater demands on the ability to generate power. I'll just make a little bit of progress and then I'll give way. I know this is an important debate. So this brings me to the subject that we discussed today, Britain's development in modular nuclear reactors. The concept, of course, is not new. Rolls-Royce have been building small reactors to power our Royal Navy submarines for decades. So you'd think that the UK would be well placed to be the first nation to have one up and running. The benefits are very, very clear, which I'm sure will be added to here in this debate. Each single reactor from Rolls-Royce generates 470 megawatts of energy. Each one of those enough to power 1 million homes. They only cost 2.2 billion each versus the 20 billion of their bigger brothers. And once those 5 reactors are built, the first 5 of course, then the concept can be proven and we can start to look at exports. The export market itself for Rolls-Royce is £54 billion to the UK. This will not only help the UK, but it will also help other nations meet their crippling energy prices, but also meet their COP26 targets as well. Very quickly.
Of course, Trasfynydd in Meirionydd is entirely publicly owned and it's a nuclear licensed site. As such, it offers an unparalleled opportunity for the fastest deployment of SMR technology at any UK site. Now, NDA and Welsh Government development company Cwmni Egino are working together on proposals for siting. Hopes are high that construction could begin in 2027. That's where the timing is so critical. Now, I'm sure that he would agree with me that Cwmni Egino's development model provides a blueprint that could be used not just in Wales, but beyond, for that alacrity of development which we are all seeking.
I'm grateful for that intervention, and again, it indicates the fact that there is a desire to see these reactors built here in the UK. All these reactors will be firstly built in a factory, and that single factory, once it's up and running, will be able to build the components for these reactors in months, not in decades. Just about all the moving parts are in place to make this happen. The design, the support from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, represented by the Minister here today. The initial development costs are there, the private sector investment and indeed interest, the factory site in Derby earmarked, as well as potential sites across the country. We'd be creating 40,000 jobs, a £50 billion worth of investment, and offering a revolution to clean energy supply. So what is the problem? If we have a workable design, a genuine solution to help resolve this energy challenge, a government department saying all the right things and offering the support, and there's backing from the private sector, why do I need to bring this issue to the floor of this House? Well, the answer is very simple, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The design by Rolls-Royce is now stuck between the development and the delivery phase. And this delay means that the built-in Rolls-Royce advantage has in its experience in procuring nuclear reactors for the Royal Navy is being lost because of the unnecessary delays and bureaucracy. Clearly, all nuclear reactors are complex, and there should be no shortcuts to their procurement. But this is not about design approval, it's about the political will. The government needs to formally agree to commission those first 5 reactors here in the UK. So this will allow Rolls-Royce to secure the funding to build the factory. Then this will allow more reactors orders to then be honoured. I give way.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for giving way. Dunray in my constituency was the site of the very first nuclear reactor built in the United Kingdom. The site is licensed, it has a very skilled workforce today, and it has huge local support. Will the right honourable member agree with me that Dunray should be considered for this as a site for one of these new reactors?
Love it for me to be the one that actually gifts these locations out. I'd be simply grateful, and I'm sure the Minister is hearing this, that those 5 locations then receive potential permissions to build. But firstly, we need to get through the red tape that's stuck in government. And I stress, it's not the department represented here today. I'm afraid it is the Treasury.
Would you give way? Thank you.
I will.
As the Chair of the APPG on SMRs, I thank the Right Honourable Member for Bournemouth East for allowing me to speak in this important debate of the funding of SMRs. As he quite rightly said, Rolls-Royce SMR has secured £210 million of UKRI funding and further £280 million of private investor funding. We need to move to this next stage. This next stage is all about deployment. We need to agree with the UK government on plans for siting and for funding. And we've got these manufacturing plants are already earmarked for Rolls-Royce SMR right across the UK, as he mentioned, in places like Deeside, which will benefit North Wales and my constituents on Ynys-Môn. So does my right honourable friend agree with me that the next stage is important, as it will unlock more private sector investment, result in new factories and more high-skilled jobs in the UK in this Parliament?
Well, I'm grateful to that intervention from our honourable friend, and can I commend the work that she's doing as in charge of the APPG for nuclear. And I hope that what she says will fall on the welcome ears of the Minister, who is shortly to get to his feet. My simple plea to the Minister is to please recognise the scale of the energy crisis that we face necessitates leaning into this project to secure greater political alignment that would allow funding models to be completed in this Parliament. That is absolutely possible. Europe is once again at war, and it's time for us to move to a walk-like footing if we are to reduce our dependence on overseas power sources which are exposed to volatile international prices and indeed adversarial interference which we cannot control. We can enjoy greater energy self-sufficiency with cheaper bills by generating cheap, clean, reliable power within our borders. We have the know-how, we have the design, we have the industrial advantage. I simply ask the Minister for that political will to make it happen. Thank you.
Welcome the Minister to his new role. Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by congratulating my right honourable friend, the Member of Parliament for Bournemouth East, for securing this important debate today, and indeed for speaking so passionately about the benefits that can come from this fascinating development of a UK capability in nuclear power. Tonight's debate gives us this opportunity to build on the discussion and debate on small modular reactors and energy security in the UK, which was convened by our honourable friend, the member for Innismont, in January of this year. As Climate Minister, I'm proud to support not only the government funding, but also the private investment, which we're seeing sometimes facilitated by that government funding in the nuclear sector. And as my right honourable friend has said, the global energy crisis created by Russia's invasion of Ukraine underlines our resolve to develop new nuclear capacity in order to boost our energy security. And I'm sure all of us who take an interest in this will have been gladdened by the fact that there's such strong support from right across this House in this debate this evening. So as we make strides towards delivering net zero, the demands on our electricity system will increase. Electricity will be increasingly important, potentially providing around half of final energy demand as its use for heat and in transport increases. This would require a fourfold increase in clean energy generation, in clean electricity generation rather, with the decarbonisation of electricity underpinning the delivery of that overall net zero target. Our analysis shows that all low-cost, low-emission solutions which will take us to this net zero compliant electricity system are all likely to require a combination of new nuclear and combined cycle gas turbines with carbon capture, utilisation and storage, in addition to growing levels of renewables. It's a complex piece, but we need all the bits coming together to meet the challenges which my right honourable friend set out. Nuclear power is important for the UK's energy security, as my right honourable friend has said. As the world has emerged from COVID-19, global demand for energy has risen significantly, and of course this has been exacerbated by Putin's malign invasion of Ukraine. But secure, clean and affordable energy for the long term depends on the transformation of our energy system. And that means more homegrown energy, as my right honourable friend has said, from increasingly diverse sources, which reduces our dependency on imported fossil fuels and our exposure to the high and volatile prices in international markets we can see today. And honourable members will be aware that in April 2022 we announced the British Energy Security Strategy, and this set out our ambition to deploy up to 24 gigawatts of civil nuclear power by 2050, which will meet around 25% of our projected 2050 electricity demand. New nuclear generating capacity is an important part of our plans to ensure greater energy resilience, as well as having a crucial role to play, as I say, in net zero. And I'm delighted that the British Energy Security Strategy set out the government's intention to take a large-scale new project to final investment decision during this Parliament, and that 2 projects will reach that point in the next Parliament, subject always to necessary approvals. However, I would remind members that SMRs will be an important part, as well as those other large nuclear, will be a critical part of delivering new nuclear for the UK. They offer the opportunity for flexible deployment options, and we've heard various bids already to host them, and could bring significant regional and socio-economic benefits, including the creation of high-value manufacturing and engineering jobs, both on-site and also on the site of the manufacturing. In November last year, as my right honourable friend has already referenced, we announced £210 million in match funding for Rolls-Royce SMR Limited to develop the design for one of the world's first small modular reactors. And funding for this project was predicated on Rolls-Royce matching the government's contribution with private investment, which has, as my right honourable friend said, been found and giving the design capability of being deployed in the UK by the early 2030s, if not possibly before. The government funding for Rolls-Royce is part of the Advanced Nuclear Fund. It's a significant government commitment of up to £385 million to develop both a domestic SMR design and demonstrate the viability of innovative advanced modular reactor AMRs by the early 2030s. But in addition to investment in SMRs, the government plans to invest in the AMR Research, Development and Demonstration Programme, and that, which, as I say, should get something going by the early 30s. It focuses on high-temperature gas reactors for low-carbon electricity generation and would allow them to produce very high-temperature heat, which could be used for increasingly efficient production, for instance, of low-carbon hydrogen to help decarbonise industrial process heat or even for synthetic fuel production. I'm pleased to remind members that we launched the Future Nuclear Enabling Fund, the FNEF. Bayes is full. I've, in my first day, realised of acronyms galore, on 2nd of September 2022. And the FNEF, never terribly well crafted, is a £120 million fund announced in the government's net zero strategy Build Back Greener in 2021. And the aforementioned FNEF aims to help mature potential nuclear projects ahead of any government process to select future nuclear projects. And we expect to be making awards from this at the end of this year or at the start of 2023. And alongside the launch of the FNEF, we're setting up the Great British Nuclear, GBN, which is a body to enable nuclear projects and get us on a pathway to meet our ambitions for new nuclear, with the aim of ensuring the kind of rapidity which my right honourable friend is right to press on ministers such as myself. We intend to initiate a selection process in 2023 with the intention that we enter into negotiations with the most credible projects to enable a potential government award of support as soon as possible. And I'm pleased that Parliament backed the Nuclear Energy Financing Act, which was granted royal assent in March, establishing a new regulated asset-based RAB funding model for all nuclear projects. I give way to my right honourable friend.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend, the Minister, and can I forgive me for not congratulating him on securing this position that he has. He is a round peg in the round hole. I know how passionate he is about the environment. I wondered whether he'd join me in paying tribute to the right honourable member for Spelthorne, who was previously in charge of Bayes, who now is in the Treasury and therefore perfectly placed to advance this. Would he also agree that during the war there was an effort to create munitions? We lent into that project because there was a necessity. During COVID, there was a necessity to create the PPE. There is now a necessity for us to lean into that, to expedite within safety parameters to make sure that we can now become more energy resilient.
I thank my right honourable friend. I'm happy to do that. He will forgive me, perhaps on this one day only, for not leaning in to chastise any other government department or the government in general on day one. Self-confident, though I always try to be. But what I would say is, if you look at what we have done, we've reduced our emissions more than any other major industrialised nation. Offshore wind has been a triumph. And I am looking forward to learning more about the detail of these programmes. But I have no doubt that with the right will and with the proper prompting by colleagues from across the House, we can ensure that we move with the speed necessary, because he's right. We're not alone in pursuing and seeing this opportunity. And there have been instances in the past where this country has been in a position to lead and has not moved quickly enough, and the multi-billion dollar, if we call it that, opportunities have ended up going elsewhere. And I am determined not only should we deliver our green obligations in this country, but that we build our industrial capability so that even the most sceptical person comes on board as we say, look, we're not just dealing with climate, we're not just cleaning up our domestic situation, we're actually developing major industrial capability so that we can sell that to the rest of the world, help them with the net zero challenge, and also produce jobs and prosperity here. It's not a hair shirt that we want. We want to get the policy right so that we're part of a global solution, but we do so in a way which boosts jobs, boosts prosperity, and carries the support of everyone, regardless of their particular views on climate-related matters. We believe the aforementioned RAB could cut the cost of financing the project, enabling companies to finance new ones and ending our reliance on overseas developers for finance, resulting in savings for consumers. So a lot of work in day one, I can reassure my right honourable friend, is going into making sure that we can move at pace, but we also do so with the most solid base possible. We fully support the development of small modular reactors and the exciting opportunities in terms of energy security and net zero that it can offer, that they can offer the UK. We've demonstrated our intent to build new nuclear capacity in the UK over the past year, and we've made decisions that we believe will provide the confidence for investors and businesses to get behind it. From the Energy White Paper to our landmark British Energy Security Strategy to funding for the small modular reactors and the Future Nuclear Enabling Fund, I hope, Mr Deputy Speaker, we've shown our dedication to energy security, net zero and nuclear. And I thank my right honourable friend and other colleagues once again. Thank you.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As Member Lampard say aye? Contrary no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.